Good morning. So it's been about 2 years since we set up that cylinder reef tank, and like most reef tanks, it's a challenge to control nutrients as well as deal with the calcium and alkalinity levels. What I've begun to do every 2 weeks on the cylinder reef tank is a 100-gallon water change to help control the level of nitrates in the system. I installed one of those freestanding cylinders or reactors to put the GFO in to control the phosphates, and I've got both down to about 25 parts of nitrate and about 0.006 on the phosphate level. Calcium and alkalinity has been also an issue, and I've been using the 2-part solution, but I'm really struggling to try to maintain a decent calcium level, and to a minor degree the growth of the corals, or should I say lack of growth of the corals in the tank, kind of reflects that lower level. So with that in mind, not only am I going to do a 100-gallon water change today, but me and Scott are also going to install a Geo's Reef calcium reactor on that 100-gallon or that 200-gallon cylinder reef tank. So come along. Okay, so here's the cylinder tank in all of its glory. The remaining corals seem to be doing relatively well. We have struggled with the calcium and alkalinity, which we're going to deal with this later this morning. We also had a nutrient issue. I had elevated nitrates and elevated phosphates. We have begun to do 100-gallon water changes every other week, which has brought down the nitrate and phosphate levels along with GFO to very respectable levels, and the corals have rebounded in kind, meaning that Montipora up there has really grown back. There's also a SPS over here on the other side that has responded quite well. The hammer corals themselves struggled for a bit. The remaining ones have done well, but there were a number more that we had added but have since disappeared. Soft corals are doing relatively well. The large green finger coral or soft Nephthia is doing well. The toadstools are having a little bit of a hard time, but overall the fish population is doing really quite well. So we need to go ahead and clean the tank. I'll do that here in a moment, but what I did want to do was what we're going to do is add a calcium reactor to the system today, and what they've done is extended the length of the cabinet to accommodate the placement of the reactor. There's where the chiller actually sits. The sump with the protein skimmer in it, the Micron socks, all of the Neptune Apex equipment, heater control, chiller control, and the ATO reservoir. Down here are the various float switches that we've been using to maintain the water level in the tank. And as far as the water change is concerned, as opposed to shutting down the system and draining out 100% of 100 gallons of water, I kind of do 25 gallons at a time in and 25 gallons at a time out. And so what I have is a large container out in the van that brings water in, and then a hose that siphons water out of the sump. The water coming out of the sump goes down to the floor drain, and the new salt water I am pumping in from the van out here on the other side of the garage with a large or long 100-gallon hose and a capable sump pump. So let's go ahead and get started on the water change, getting the tank cleaned, and then we'll get prepared for Scott to arrive to install the calcium reactor equipment. So we'll start first by starting to pump water into the sump from the reservoir here. And then we'll create a siphon sucking water out of the sump taking care not to step in the dog poo. And so as long as I pay attention and catch it in time, I can fill up the sump with new clean salt water and extract old water. The green hose is extracting water, which is from the input side of the sump. The black hose is from the reservoir in the van, which is on the downside of the filter system. And I just have to pay attention to the water level here. I better turn the protein skimmer off though.
The first step in cleaning the cylinder tank is using the aquarium cleaning magnets to wipe away the last week's worth of algae that's grown upon it. This involves using one magnet on the inside of the tank and the other goes on the outside. The two will grasp each other, sandwiching the acrylic material between them. Depending upon the strength of the magnets and the thickness of the acrylic material, defines how easy or how hard it is to move the magnets back and forth, or how good and how much of the algae they actually remove from the acrylic material. The biggest issue is making sure that there's no obstacle or granule of gravel between the acrylic and the magnets, whether it be on the inside or the outside magnet. I start at the top of the tank, which is the area that I can most easily see if I'm scratching the material. And then I work my way in sections from the top of the tank downwards towards the bottom, avoiding the gravel line and working on that last.
So it's the gravel line that's the biggest trick. Try to clean that as close to the sand as possible, but not pick up the sand, because that would then allow an opportunity for scratches to occur. In other words, Zorro.
And what I mean by Zorro is that zigzag scratch mark that appears in the acrylic material before you've actually realized you've just scratched the tank. It's that moment when you realize you've just autographed the aquarium with your distinct signature.
And having written my name in the tank a couple of times already, I'm trying to be real careful. And so at this point, it's best if we use the filter pad or cleaning pad on a stick to try to reach down and get those tough areas. I don't want to put any more scratches in the tank than I need to.
So the magnets do serve an overall general cleaning purpose, but the pad on a stick gives me more flexibility and slight less risk of scratching. But it doesn't remove the risk entirely. The filter pad material on the end of the stick can still pick a granule of gravel up, and zigzags can still occur. So once again, care needs to be taken and attention must be given. I will say one advantage of the acrylic over glass is one can polish out scratches out of the acrylic material. But that's work, it's hard work, and it requires time and expertise in doing so. So with that said, once again, you just have to pay attention to what you're doing.
So we've run about 50 gallons in and out of the tank so far. I've got a very full sump now, and it's about time that I start actually vacuuming the gravel, which is how I'll extract probably the other half of the water coming out of that sump.
The actual water change is a real balancing act. On one hand, I'm using water to siphon debris from the bottom of the tank and within the layers of the sand at the bottom. On the other hand, it's a means of diluting the buildup of nutrients within the aquarium. It would be more effective if I were to drain down 100 gallons out of the tank and replace it with a brand new 100 gallons. But then I'd have too much of the reef exposed, and it might be too radical for the fish or the corals in the system. So this is the least radical. And at the same time, though, it's a bit risky, as if I'm not paying attention to the water level on the sump itself, I could end up overflowing the sump and causing the cabinet to become flooded. Regardless as to what may or may not be the most effective, it really comes down to what I'm most comfortable with or can effectively do or physically do. It's a pace I've developed that allows me to do 4 5-gallon buckets of gravel vacuuming to clean the entire sand bed versus monitoring the sump's water level, as well as paying attention to the 100-gallon container that's sitting out in my van out in the driveway. And the reality is, as long as I'm not distracted and stay focused, it's worked for me as well as the fish and corals for the last 2 years. Additionally, I've got the nutrient levels down to a controllable and manageable level.
And the sump's starting to get a little low on water again, so I'll walk out and turn the sump pump on in the van and refill the sump so I can do the next 5 gallons worth of vacuuming the gravel.
Some of the challenges in servicing or cleaning these unique and deep tanks is the need for a variety of cleaning pads with or without handles or extensions. These custom-made rock sculptures are very realistic, but at the same time, they offer lots of areas that may be awkward to gain access to for cleaning purposes. Over time, one collects tools and develops various routines that allow for these various challenges to be addressed.
Hi there, my name's Jim Stein and you know me as the LA Fish Guy. Well, I also wear a couple of other hats. One of them is the jellyfish tank called the Jelly Aquarium, and the third is myfishtank.com. I offer an entire line of acrylic aquariums ranging from rectangular to hexagon, flatback hex, as well as the custom curve front aquariums. There's also an entire line of stands and canopies ranging from MDF to pine to oak with a variety of different finishes available. And the website is even smart enough that you can calculate what the freight and crate charges to your location will be. That's myfishtank.com.
So, your cool nano reef tank is doing great, but you've got an algae problem? Consider the drop from Santa Monica Filtration. 7 sizes to easily fit into the filter compartment of most nano tanks. And just like their bigger cousins, the Hog and the Surf, all use air bubbles and LED light technology to grow algae. Algae that consumes nutrients. And that algae replaces itself at no new cost to you. For more information on Santa Monica Filtration's Drop, Hog, and Surf algae scrubbers, visit santa-monica.cc. When you think of Tunzi products, you probably think of protein skimmers, internal pumps, and submersible filters. But did you know Tunzi also offers water level controllers, reverse osmosis water purification systems, pH, temperature, and ORP instrumentation? Are you aware of Tunzi's full line of various filter medias and LED lighting? Have you seen Tunzi's updated line of Turbell pumps, the NanoStream, the Stream, and the MasterStream, along with their controllers? In addition to their wide product line, what Tunzi in Germany wants you to also see is their technology, their quality, their craftsmanship, and in particular, their people and the pride that goes into every one of their products and its assembly. Tunzi, high-tech aquarium ecology. Next time you're near Long Beach, California, take the time to stop in at Age of Aquariums, 2642 Cherry Avenue, just off the 405 freeway near Signal Hill. Age of Aquariums carries a full line of dry goods, supplements, and exotic equipment. Age of Aquariums also carries a wide assortment of living corals, coral frags, as well as fresh and saltwater fish, ranging from the usual, the unusual, and the bizarre. Age of Aquariums is located at 2642 Cherry Avenue, Long Beach, California, near Signal Hill. Open 7 days a week. Call 562-438-6252 or visit ageofaquariums.biz. One of the things that I've always struggled with is the actual cleaning of the sand bed in a coral reef tank. Not only is this part of the biological filtration aspects of the system, which if you're expecting some form of denitrification to occur, you could be disrupting that process. But also, this is an area that may be generating live food such as copepods, worms, or other food sources for the fish and corals in the tank. On the other hand, it's an obvious area that debris collects and can be contributing to the buildup of nutrients such as phosphates and nitrates. I will say at this point, though, that I've not seen any detriment as a result of cleaning the sand bed, so at this point I have no reason to question or to doubt it any further.
So we're about 2/3 the way through the reservoir here of water. So I'll go ahead and turn the pump back on and we'll send some more water over into the filter sump.
In addition to using the aquarium cleaning magnets and the various hand and pads on a stick to clean the inside of the aquarium, along with vacuuming the sand or gravel at the bottom of the tank, the water change, and in this case a 100-gallon water change, is to help dilute or bring down the nutrient levels that build up in the system over time. This takes into consideration that the water I'm bringing is lower or cleaner than what I'm taking out, which I truly believe is. I do employ the additional use of GFO for the phosphate levels and 2 different algae scrubbers, a hog and a surf from Santa Monica filtration. But I also feel that these voluminous water changes greatly contribute to the dilution of the buildup of the phosphate and the nitrate levels within the tank. There are those who believe that a no water change approach may lend itself to a more natural type system that is able to balance itself. But the reality is, in the aquarium service field, there are many other hands and fish food feeders involved in the aquarium, of which these are situations beyond my control. And taking into consideration that I am only on site at best once a week, as opposed to a single aquarist or hobbyist who has sole control over the entire aquarium, that I have to work within my means or ability to manage the overall water quality. And that's not intended to be an excuse. It is a reality, as who knows who or what occurs in the tank between my scheduled service visits.
So this tank has 4 of the Tunzi, I believe they're the model 6255s inside of it, which are really strong pumps. As a matter of fact, oh, looks like we lost a fish there. As a matter of fact, they are so strong we've got them set to the lowest setting in the tank. I think they might have been actually a little too strong for this particular size tank. And let's see, there it is right there. And there's the other one there. Again, they're on the lowest setting, and they're also positioned a little too close to the acrylic, which makes it a little tricky to clean them, and even more difficult to reach down so far to get them to clean them out, of which I end up having to do that about every 2 months, at least to clean the calcium or the coralline algae that grows between the Tunzi and the acrylic wall.
My process for cleaning the Tunzi pumps and the area around them consists of first using the aquarium cleaning magnets to clean in the general area around them, and then with the hand pad to clean as close as I can to them and the inside of the tank around them. I do alternately remove them from their mounts so as to clean or scrape the calcareous or coralline algae that develops on the acrylic behind or along the sides of them. Since we ran their power cords inside the internal overflow and then out through Scott's attached mounts to the overflow, it becomes a little bit more awkward to remove the pumps from their mount. The challenge being pulling enough excess cable through the mounts to pull the pumps far enough away from the overflow. I'm able to move them enough to clean the acrylic, but so far to date, I have not removed them far enough, or certainly not enough to get them out of the water or the aquarium, so as to clean them with vinegar, which is what's recommended on occasion. I will say, though, that these Tunzi pumps are quite durable and can operate in situations where they can tolerate and continue to operate in an uncleaned mode.
And so if you recall, Scott had rigged up the Apex system as well as the Tunzi controllers all on this slick board that attaches to the inside of the metal frame. Again, here's the Apex control unit, the AB8-32. All of those blue pieces of tape are all numbers that correspond to the tags that are on the outlets. And of course, these are all of the Tunzi control modules. As I mentioned, the pumps are really quite strong, quite reliable, and almost too strong for the tank. They're at the lowest settings, which does generate a pretty nice flow within the tank, that's for sure. Okay, so we've finished servicing the tank itself. Now we're going to go address some components in the filter system. So filter system maintenance consists of topping off the ATO reservoir, or the freshwater replenishment, cleaning the protein skimmer, which we've already done. I've got the GFO reactor down here that I want to change the GFO media in it, and what I use as my guideline is a combination of where the phosphate level is, as well as the flow that's currently passing through that little reactor. And then I also want to clean the algae scrubbers. I have both the surf algae scrubber as well as the hog algae scrubber here. But let's start first by topping off the ATO reservoir.
In the drier months, this aquarium evaporates enough salt water to require the weekly addition of almost 5 gallons of replacement reverse osmosis water to refill its reservoir. If you're not aware of the fact that when salt water evaporates, only the water disappears and the salt remains. So what we want to add back or replenish with is fresh water, or in this case, purified water.
Okay, so now let's go ahead and pull out that reactor that holds the GFO media. It's a freestanding reactor that I purchased from Bulk Reef Supply. I believe Cincy is the one, or CC, however you want to pronounce it, the Italian water pump people who make it. And of course, it's one of their pumps that drives it. And what I use as a determining factor is the flow coming out of it. And right now, even though you're supposed to have really slow flow through a phosphate reactor or GFO reactor, to me, that's too slow, not efficient enough for this large a system. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And what I need to do is locate the pump that I am using to run it, and that pump is this one right here. So that's unplugged, and then I'll just need to take and loosen these nuts on top. And then twist it a bit, take the top off, and lift the reactor out. And the reactor comes out just like that. So we'll go ahead and rinse it out a bit. Get the sponge free, because that's what's probably inhibiting most of the flow. There's a sponge inside here as well. And then rinse out the reactor a little bit. Go ahead and reassemble it. This goes down inside here. Add our GFO, which is granular ferric oxide. We don't want to fill it completely full. We want the media to tumble a bit, and the fuller it is, the slower the flow. This is the high capacity version of the BRS GFO. Fill her up so we can rinse it out a little bit. We'll discard that water. And we'll go reinstall it back in the system. And reinstalling the reactor is just about as easy, or hopefully just as easy. And plugging it back in. So next is the algae scrubbers. We'll start first with the surf and then we'll work our way over to the hog. We're going to clean the algae out of them.
The surf algae scrubber is called the surf as it's designed to float at the surface in either the aquarium or, in our case, the sump. Its position is defined by the available space. These algae scrubbers grow algae within themselves, and as that algae grows, it consumes nutrients. In this particular case, it's consuming nitrates from the water.
It's this algae that's locking up the nitrates and phosphates in it. And since we're removing the algae, we are physically removing nitrates and phosphates out of the system.
These algae scrubbers are air-driven, and as such, the air bubbles that percolate inside the surf draw the water into itself and expose that water as well as the nutrients to the algae, which is what the algae uses to grow on.
That's the surf, and it gets its name as a result of the fact that it floats or surfs at the surface of the tank. Now it's these little air lines that you have to keep clean, free of salt, otherwise it doesn't generate the airflow you would want it to. A lot of times I'll use a paper clip to get up inside there. And then the hog is back here. It gets its name because it hangs on glass or hangs on the side of the sump.
And again, what defines its position is its available space. Originally, I was going to use 2 of the hog units, but had to go with 1 hog and 1 surf due to not enough side space to accommodate 2 hog scrubbers. These units from Santa Monica Filtration, I believe, effectively help reduce the nutrient content, in particular the nitrates within the system. I understand the consumption principle of plants and algae to believe that these units are in fact effective in removing what can cause algae growth within an aquarium.
So aside from cleaning the acrylic on the outside of the tank, that's pretty much the maintenance aspects of this 200-gallon cylinder reef tank. Scott is here, and so he's eager to get started on installing the calcium reactor. So I'll go ahead and clean this. Make sure to come back for the next part, and you can see us install that reactor.